some polls after the debate found that 72% of voters did not believe Biden has the mental or cognitive health to serve as president, as well as nearly half of his own party. Do you think that the voters were wrong to be concerned that President Biden was mentally or cognitively unfit to be president?
You know, coming out of the debate, there's no question that people had concerns that had been brought to the forefront by his poor performance in the debate. You know, we were looking at a campaign where we felt we would have more opportunities to address those concerns through a convention, through a second debate.
You say concerns. Can you define the type of concerns?
The concerns that you just raised in the public polling.
About his cognitive or mental
It's
abilities?
about his ability to be president.
So, just to be clear, do you think voters' concerns about cognitive decline by President Biden were legitimate?
I'm a big believer in listening to voters. So I think we heard those concerns and thought about ways that the president could go address those concerns.
We can rewind a little bit here and we'll get into your roles working directly for President Biden a little bit more later, but I kind of want to talk about some of your other roles. I understand you've had a very long career and try not to harp on each position too long here. But was your first role in government during the Carter administration, is that right?
That's correct.
And you interned for the then White House Communications Director, is that right?
No, I interned for Hamilton Jordan, who was, when I began interning for him, a senior advisor and then became White House Chief of Staff.
Okay. And then did you have another role after being an intern in the Carter administration?
Well, I went to work for Jerry Rafshin, who did the advertising for the 1980 Carter re-election campaign.
So you worked on the campaign after interning at the White House?
That's correct.
And I know you mentioned in our last topic that you had worked in the Senate as well. You said you were a Senate staffer. Was that a government position for a senator? Is that right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And again, we'll get into it, but did you have any other government positions besides your internship with the Carter administration and the role you're discussing now in the Senate between then and working for the Biden administration?
Yes, I did. In 1982, I was a press assistant for the Senate Democratic Policy Committee in the United States Senate. I then went to work for Senator John Glenn of Ohio in 1983 and served Senator Glenn through, I'm sorry, don't recall exactly, but probably mid-1984. I then worked for Congressman Chet Atkins, Democrat from Massachusetts, in 1987. And, I worked for Representative Bob Edgar from Pennsylvania from August 1984 through January 1987. I then went to work for Congressman Chet Atkins, Democrat of Massachusetts, through 1987. I next worked in the federal government for United States Senator Bill Bradley. I joined Senator Bradley's staff in, I believe, February of 1991 and served him until August of 1993. In 1995, I was a temporary staffer in the United States Senate for Senator Daschle. And again, in 2001, I served in a full-time temporary basis for Leader Daschle when he became majority leader through the rest of that year, a terrible year. Then I served in 2009 in the Obama White House and did not serve again in the government until I went to work for President-elect Biden.
And all those dates are to the best of your recollection?
They are to the best of my recollection. I'm a little hazy on a few of them, but I'm pretty good on most.
It was pretty impressive.
We understand and we appreciate that. During those various Senate and House roles, did you also have a role on any of the campaigns, on any political campaigns?
Yes, I did.
mostly for Senate candidates or for a mix?
When I was working for candidates, it was not when I was, by and large, when I was working for the House or the Senate. It was, I also served as the communications director of the Democratic Senate Campaign Committee under John Kerry and then under John Breaux in the 1988 and 1990 cycles. So obviously was working on a huge number of campaigns during that time. I then went to work for, after I left Senator Bradley's staff, I went to work for what was then known as Squire Knapp Oaks, which was a political consulting firm. I worked on a huge number of campaigns during that period. I worked on Senator Bradley's presidential campaign in 1999 and 2000. I, again, was doing a lot of campaigns during this period and worked on Senator Obama's presidential campaign in 2008.
I'm not sure if that was what you had just mentioned there, but in 1993 you joined the political consulting firm SKDK. Is that right?
Well, that firm at the time was known as Squire Knapp Oaks.
And would you intermittently leave that firm to work in various other places over the years and go back to it? Is that right?
That's correct.
What was your, and I'm sorry if you said it earlier, but what was your role at SKDK?
Well, when I entered the firm, I entered it as a senior vice president. And then I was made a partner in the firm, to the best of my recollection. Honestly, I think in 1998.
Sure. Is it fair to say that across your various positions, communications and strategies were generally the focus of your roles?
That is correct.
You mentioned the first time that you met then Senator Biden was in the 1980s. Do you recall specifically?
No, I don't.
Did you interact with Senator Biden in the 80s and 90s many times or just a few times?
Oh, and to the best of my recollection, just a few times.
And were these, committee hearings where you would hear him speak, or were these interactions directly with Senator Biden?
They were very much in the nature of, hello, Senator. Primarily when I was at the Democratic Senate Campaign Committee in the 1990 cycle, because Senator Biden was up for re-election. So, he would come to the group meetings of senators and things like that.
I understand. And you mentioned that, and I don't want to mischaracterize it, correct me if I misrepresent your testimony here, but I think you said that you didn't know that President Biden ever had a stutter until much later, and that to me that says he did not have a stutter or you didn't notice a stutter when you interact with then Senator Biden?
Well, I didn't know him very well. I didn't work for him. But that is correct. I really didn't know until I went to work for him.
How would you characterize his communication skills during that time when he was a senator?
Well, he had a reputation for making long speeches. He certainly, he was chairman of the Judiciary Committee when I worked for Senator Bradley. Bradley did not serve on any committees with Biden, but they had a pretty good personal relationship from having ridden the train together. So.
But you thought that his communication skills, outside of being long-winded, were good?
Again, I really wasn't in a position to judge. I didn't watch him very carefully.